Well, good afternoon everybody, and welcome to our second webinar in the CCI Loves HR series, Retaining Talent Through Traineeships. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We'll just start with a few
Unmuted.
We'll just start with a few house rules before we get underway. Please raise your hand if you have any technical issues. You'll notice a box down the bottom right-hand corner. Please feel free to punch any technical issues in the chat box there. You can also use the same chat facility to ask any questions throughout the webinar. We'd certainly welcome your input throughout, and we'll do our best to answer those questions as they come through. We'll be recording the webinar this afternoon for future viewing, and you'll certainly have access to the slides as they become available after the session. And certainly if you're on the Twitter platform, please join us on the conversation at hashtag CCI Hearts HR. So let me introduce myself. My name's Christy Howard, and as I said, thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm the manager here at Apprenticeship Solutions for the Chamber of Commerce and Industry. CCI Apprenticeship Solutions are an AC. We are an Australian apprenticeship centre based in Perth, and we're contracted by the Australian Government to provide a comprehensive range of information services on all aspects of apprenticeships and traineeships, certainly to both the employer and the employee. We hope that we make it easier to do business with you. As I mentioned, we are a free service, so certainly all of our services are complimentary to business. We are Western Australia's only statewide apprenticeship centre, with 14 offices from up north in Kununurra to down south in Albany. We have 4 key functions that essentially we provide support for. We are certainly the contact point for employers taking on apprentices and trainees. Our role in the training contract is to support the employer and the apprentice and register that in a training contract with Apprentice Centre, our state training authority. We provide support in the administration of government incentives or payments that are due to employers or employees. And then we provide ongoing support throughout that learning journey and provide mentoring services to all parties. We're also part of a national Australian Apprenticeship Alliance with our other state chamber acts as part of the chamber movement. This allows us to provide a comprehensive one-stop shop to all clients across the nation. Given we work with the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we also have very extensive industry knowledge and reach and networks that span right across the state. This afternoon we're talking about traineeships, so I just wanted to touch on what they are and why they're important before we move into introducing our guest speaker this afternoon. Training, as I'm sure you're aware and agree, is a really important tool to invest in. It's an engagement piece to actively recruit, retain and develop talent in the workplace. Particularly in these tough economic times at present, productivity and efficiency is even more important, and hence the opportunity to invest in your staff is of paramount importance. So a traineeship is essentially accredited training that is mapped through to a nationally recognised qualification, which is then in turn aligned to an individual's occupation. So any of us in any role, irrespective of our prior qualifications and background, can be enrolled in a traineeship qualification. We provide through a traineeship pathway a structured workplace learning opportunity for talent to develop and grow. The term traineeship can be a little bit misleading. It does imply young or youth or perhaps moving back to a trainee wage, but in fact it's not the case. Traineeships certainly aren't just for the young. They can go right up to a diploma level qualification, and as I mentioned, they're certainly applicable to all of us in the workplace. In fact, we're currently working with a client, a fairly senior and large multinational company based here in WA, who have a commitment to put everyone from their CEO through to their frontline staff member through a traineeship qualification. The key benefit in doing that for them is to retain top talent in their workplace. I'd like to now introduce you to Anne Poole from Pathology. Anne and Clinipath in turn are a key client of Apprenticeship Solutions. They have a great story about retaining top talent through traineeships. Clinipath Pathology is certainly an employer of choice, and we were delighted to recently recognise them at the CCI Apprenticeship Solutions Employer Excellence Awards last year in 2014. They were awarded the Outstanding Employer of Mature Age Apprentices and Trainees. So it's great to have Anne here with us today. Anne is the Patient Services Manager of Clinipath Pathology. She's an experienced operations project manager and strategic leader with a demonstrated background in using visionary ideology to embed sustainable organisational change backed by extensive relevant corporate knowledge to effect sustainable reform practices. In October 2012, Anne was approached by the executive of Clinipath Pathology to restructure the patient services department within the organisation, following the acquisition of Healthscope Pathology. The acquisition expanded the business by 1/3 of its current operations almost overnight. The scope highlighted the acquisition must be seamless and with no interruption to service. To that, I'll now pass to Anne Poole, who will discuss her story with you. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you, Christy. It's great to be here, and it's great to be able to share the Clinipath story with your participants. I'd like to start off with some words from Paul Hawken. Good management is the art of making problems so interesting and their solutions so constructive that everyone wants to get to work to deal with them. Now, the Clinipath Pathology story. Clinipath Pathology is the largest pathology service provider now in Western Australia with over 800 staff members. They operate over 200 collection sites and 4 laboratories. Uniquely, half of our workforce work off-site as sole operators, and as Christy earlier said, the business expanded in October 2012 by 1/3 overnight in a highly competitive industry. So the model that we looked at in terms of traineeship certainly has applicability to small businesses, departments within organisations and whole organisations with quantifiable cost savings.
And if I may jump in there, you mentioned over half your workforce is off-site. I guess with that in mind and applicable to some of our listeners today, what were some of the challenges you had to overcome in working with staff who are based off-site?
Yes, well, Christy, there are quite a few challenges that we had to look at. The first was the engagement of staff working off-site and to provide them with a holistic view of the business and where the business needed to be moving. Quick, effective communication is always very difficult with staff working off-site. Now, one of the approaches we took was by decentralising the current management structure and providing managers within local hubs with local knowledge. So they provided ease of access and developed teams within regions, and then we began the engagement process. Communication could be effected at a local level. Traineeships continue to be implemented and managed at these local levels, and the hub-type management models, I think, has particular applicability to small businesses or units within businesses. Now, we faced many challenges, obviously, with the melding of the two teams from two organisations, both from very different cultures. The training prior at Clinipath had been conducted in-house. Now, this was resource intensive, extremely costly, and had variable results. We also had to gain executive approval. We work within a medical model that has a focus on quality, and this program had to prove itself in terms of quality to be accepted by the culture of the organisation.
So Anne, you mentioned their executive approval and how important that was. I think that's something we can all relate to. Can you step us through, I guess, the hoops you had to jump through to get that traineeship program over the line with the exec?
Absolutely. So being a medical model and being quality focused, our mantra is quality is in our DNA. I requested an RTO that I'd had a previous successful relationship with to present the benefits to the executive. However, we did have to present on 4 separate occasions, each time addressing more of the issues which were raised at the previous presentations. I certainly highlighted the quality of the RTO, and we also highlighted then that the program could be cost neutral or potentially revenue raising. Once we got past executive approval, fact sheets were sent out to all staff to encourage engagement, and then we had the RTO visit all the sites to answer any of the questions that the staff might have. Now, regional management was certainly engaged at this stage, and all the managers in my team are on traineeships with the rest of their ground staff, and that was the beginning of the process. So how do we implement that change in a conservative environment? So the traineeship program for us aligns very closely with our core values, especially continuous improvement and service excellence. It provides a baseline of training and service delivery, which is very, very important in the medical industry. We found that it was extremely important to align the new with the best of the existing, so change becomes less confronting and much more inclusive with staff, especially those staff that aren't on site. We had monthly continuous improvements meetings between both our area managers, which were managing at a regional level, and the RTO, and we ensured that there was regular feedback and tweaking as the program developed. Trainees always had the opportunity to feedback to local managers, and issues were dealt with in a timely manner. We embedded the RTO trainers into our organisation, and they became part of that organisation, and we insisted on trainer visit monthly reports from our RTO. Now, good communication, both formally and informally, are key to promoting positive results in this traineeship program, and a culture of continuous improvement, I believe, has now developed with the upskilling for future roles for our workers, and continuous education and improvement through traineeships is promoted now at recruitment and always with our existing staff. Succession planning has actually become easier through this program. So how did our training support the change? So I now believe that we have an organisation with a culture that embraces training at all levels. We customise the training program to be both flexible and user-friendly. We certainly offer training to all employees, both existing and new workers, as I've discussed before. We try to encourage, inspire and recognise the potential of employees. This program is very important for us. We've formed a partnership with an RTO that aligns with the core values of our organisation and who willingly provides customisation in our unique working environment.
And we've actually just had a question that's come through from one of our listeners, just touching on the point that you raised here and earlier around how closely you worked with the RTO and really having them support you and the outcomes you wanted from the program. The question is, how critical is it to build a relationship with the RTO that you're working with?
Absolutely imperative, Christy. The RTO represents you as the employee to your employees during the training process. They must align with your core values. They must be the correct cultural fit for your organisation, and they have to represent the very best of the training that you're requiring. A trial is always possible with an RTO if it's untested, whereby you can certainly try them out with the training program, make sure that you're getting the reports, the feedback, ensure that they're producing the results that you want, set some KPIs and make sure that you're monitoring the program. The RTO is a specialist in the field. You don't need to have that specialisation, but you must be a demanding client.
And thanks, Anne. Thanks for your honesty there and spelling that out for us.
Right, so the critical success factors. Return on investment. So we've had some pretty great returns on our training investment, but through all that, management have embraced and actively modelled the organisation's core values. We've certainly aligned those core values and demonstrated those company values, and through communication and feedback we have prevented the loss of staff. We've ensured inclusion at every level, and we've established some KPIs to measure our success. Some of those KPIs are pretty amazing. Just within a 12-month period, because we've provided now a breadth of knowledge through traineeships to our staff, conservatively we would have saved about $250,000 alone just on recollection of specimens. Our recruitment costs have decreased substantially. As employees become more engaged, attrition decreases. And recently, through winning the CCI Employee Excellence Awards, we've certainly gained the reputation for employer of choice. We no longer are recruiting, people are coming to us, and that's a fantastic thing for Clinipath Pathology.
Thanks, Anne. We might now launch a poll, just a question to the group, interesting as we start to talk on return on investment and some budgetary considerations around this. We'll launch the poll question, which is, do you have a training budget? Curious as to whether your organisation does have a budget for training or doesn't. So we'll get that on the screen very shortly.
So unfortunately for us, like most organisations, training is often the first item to be abandoned during difficult financial times. I think it's very, very important to keep some key performance indicators going to make sure that you're proving the worth of the program. I've spoken about recruitment costs potentially decreasing, certainly with efficiencies, you're saving on labour costs, and there's a whole range of gains in applying this particular program. One of the critical success factors, I think, is while change can certainly alienate a workforce, if it's implemented correctly, we can actually prevent the loss of valuable staff, and that's certainly what we did during that acquisition phase, where we couldn't possibly afford to lose one single staff member, otherwise it would have posed a huge risk to our business. I would encourage anyone looking at this program to regularly meet with all stakeholders, set some clear timelines on actions, and certainly establish those KPIs.
Thank you. We're just getting the poll results in at the moment. So thanks for those that participated in the poll. Interesting that the question was, do you have a training budget? 94% of people do in fact have a training budget. I'm sure they're to differing degrees. And 6% of participants this afternoon don't have a training budget. And with that in mind, did you have a training budget to implement this traineeship program?
No, I didn't have a training budget, unfortunately, to implement this program. So the fact that, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later, that this program can be cost neutral at least and revenue raising at best is certainly how I got it over the line.
Thanks, Anne.
Okay, so perhaps we can look at the benefits or how do we retain staff through traineeships. Through traineeships, we've found a greater engagement and certainly less attrition of our workforce. It's provided us with an opportunity to identify and nurture the internal talent that we have got, and for succession planning. We've certainly strengthened employee-employer relationships, which has to be a good thing. We've developed a much more confident workforce, and we've established a career pathway that previously didn't exist for our staff members. By providing training that's flexible and customised, we have allowed cross-department transfers. We've also had people that have gone on to university education or diploma qualifications, or gone into management positions. So we've had quite a few wins through this program.
And then obviously, and again you touched on this earlier, strategic leadership and the support from the top down is obviously really important in ensuring the success of this and retaining talent. How did Clinipath show strong strategic leadership in retaining the talent through that expansion process, particularly when you acquired HealthScope?
Sure. Look, I think that the traineeship, certainly the traineeships have established a career pathway for staff who previously were pretty much stuck in roles. The staff certainly feel less isolated as sole operators, and they've actually now contextualised their work roles through understanding the roles of others within the organisation. This has definitely promoted inclusion and a holistic view of the organisation. As I've said before, the training, if it's flexible and customised, we don't believe there's a one-size-fits-all approach. This has provided success in our traineeship program with our staff members. A nationally recognised qualification is now available for all staff who work at Clinipath Pathology. So there were many quality training benefits for us and for any employer looking at embarking on this program. We have certainly increased our staff retention. We've had considerable cost savings to our business. We have cost-neutral training in place, quality, cost-neutral training. We've contributed to the practical skills, the engagement and the holistic understanding of the organisation with our staff member. We've strengthened employee-employer relationships, and of course Clinipath has now become employer of choice.
And we've just had a question from the group, and the term cost neutral has certainly opened the ears and eyes of all of us, I think, an interesting term. What do you actually mean by cost neutral in a training environment?
Well, cost neutral means that the administrative support that we receive from our RTO and the CCI combined cover all our administrative costs. And then, of course, anyone on a traineeship is actually exempt. We're exempt from the payroll tax that we need to pay for those employees. Now, those exemptions cover all the statutory fees that are applicable to the RTO. The program in effect pays for itself while ensuring the quality training and upskilling of your staff.
Great, thanks Anne. And thank you for sharing the Clinipath story. We wanted to sort of start to conclude before we open up to any additional questions on some of the financial benefits to your organisation. There are a whole host, and I'll preface this slide by saying this is certainly not a finite list of all the financial benefits available, but certainly some to be aware of. There are a number of Australian government incentives at both a state and a federal level. Those can apply to both new workers in your organisation and also to existing staff. Payroll tax exemption is something that certainly is in place across the entire country with different schemes in each state and territory. However, the payroll tax exemption opportunity in WA is really quite advantageous, so I'd encourage you to have a look at any payroll tax exemption that you may be able to claim through investing in a traineeship. We here at CCI Apprenticeship Solutions, we certainly manage all the contractual paperwork, the commencements, the incentives and any mentoring support that we can certainly provide to your organisation and your employees to ensure that they complete their qualification and get a really successful outcome from that. We also, RTO management and assistance is certainly, Anne talked to that a lot in her story with you, around really working closely with your RTO to ensure that they understand the brief, understand the learning outcomes that you need in your organisation. In addition to that, they can work with the payroll team to ensure that these maximum benefits are attained. They certainly provide a whole host of different admin considerations that should be a benefit to your organisation. And really important financial benefit, if you get that right trainer who's embedded within your organisation, there can be a really strong return on investment.
I guess what's helped our training program to be successful was most certainly our strong relationship with both the RTO and Apprenticeship Solutions.
Thanks, Anne. And again, you know, our team at Apprenticeship Solutions, we are across the entire state and can certainly work with your organisation. We certainly understand that one size does not fit all, and again, Anne referenced that throughout her story. All businesses are unique. You know your business very well and of course have different requirements. We certainly provide a range of different services to support you. We're really happy to come and engage you in your early stages of workforce planning to understand how traineeships can play a really important part in your organisation. So Anne, what are the key steps businesses need to consider for those on the call today who are interested in this? So what are some of the key considerations that they might ponder?
Christy, I think probably one of the most important steps is first of all to gain the support and engagement from the executive or senior management of your organisation. Certainly the promotion of the program as, if not cost neutral, revenue raising. Usually has the execs' ears pricking up. Certainly choose an RTO closely aligned to your core values. That's absolutely essential. Get the best one you can for the training that you require. Inclusion throughout the organisation. Traineeships are for everyone. Everyone should have access. Early establishment of key performance indicators to ensure you can adequately monitor the program and feed back to the executive or your senior management the successes of your program. Work your registered training organisation very hard.
And I think that's a good key takeout for all of us today. Thanks, Anne. That's a good succinct slide there for us all to use as far as some considerations for our organisation. The million-dollar question, if you were to do this again, is there anything that you would do differently?
Well, I guess this is second time round for me, Christy, and so the first time I think I ironed out quite a few of the problems. Second time around, it's been easy. There's nothing I would change. The implementation of this program post-executive approval, that was probably the toughest, and local engagement was fairly easy. With both the assistance of CCI and our RTO, really it's been very smooth sailing for us.
Good to hear, Anne, and thank you. Many thanks to Anne Poole for joining us this afternoon and sharing her CliniPath journey with us. I think it's important that no matter how large or small our organisation may be, there are a number of really key takeouts for us from that presentation. So thank you, Anne. Certainly, as I mentioned, if you are interested in a free workplace consultation, we have a whole team of people scattered across the state. We'd really welcome the opportunity to come out and work with you to discuss your workforce planning and development needs and certainly any training opportunities that may arise. In order to do that, please send us an email through notifications@cciwa.com or certainly feel free to telephone us 1800 224 224 and we'll certainly have one of our workplace training advisors make contact with you very shortly. Also a plug for our next webinar in another fortnight's time, same time, 25th of March. We do have our next webinar. CCI Safety and Risk Services Manager Corinne Lee is presenting. Please join her to discuss an overview of the occupational health and safety obligations that apply to employers and individuals across the HR space. Through the webinar, Corinne will take us through how to positively influence health and safety management across your organisation and ways to prepare your exec for the impending new OSH law changes next year. And also she'll have an opportunity to open it up to the floor to answer any OSH questions that you may have. Again, thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. We hope you got some value out of that and look forward to having you at our next webinar on the 25th of March. Thanks.